Amen? Man, oh man, it was worth coming to church tonight just to hear that. I'm telling you. You ever had a song that you're playing in your car driving around or something and you're listening to it and you go, oh, I just love it, and you hit the replay button? Aren't you glad we don't use cassettes anymore? Rewind, hope you've gone back far enough. Google cassette. You don't know what that is. But anyway, you go, I feel like just hitting the replay button right now. Man, that's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for getting that ready to minister to us. And it did. It brought great ministry to my heart, and I'm sure to every single one of us tonight. We come to Him just as we are. We come broken to be mended. We come empty to be filled. We come desperate to be rescued. I can't remember all the phrasing and in what order it goes, but that's the way we come to the Lord. It makes no difference. You don't come with your life all cleaned up and say, okay, now will you take me? No, you go to Him just as you are. And He says, I'll take you and I'll change you. I'll heal you. I'll strengthen you. Man, it's great. Man, it's been a great day today. I have so enjoyed being with your church. I really have. And thank you for your graciousness, your kindness, your warmth. Man, it was great to watch those kiddos out on the playground today, too. It was great to hear the story behind it and hear how the Lord provided you with the finances and the work of many of you folks who have helped make that possible. And it's just beautiful. What a great testimony to the Lord's glory. And so I rejoice with you. These are great days for you here at Calvary Baptist. And no doubt the days to come will be some of the greatest to be. And I'm so glad to hear of all the outreach opportunities and the Vacation Bible School and all the things that you got going. That's what a local church ought to be. Don't be stagnant, and keep seeking to reach your community and your county. This is good. Glad you're here. Thank you for allowing me to be able to open up the Word of God to you during these services that we've had together today. Thank you, Pastor, for the warmth. You're always nothing but gracious, and I'm so grateful. Did you say 18 years you've been here? Is that right? 18 years total that you've been here, and what a delight. He's always been a blessing to me. I'm so grateful for him. I know you are as well. And again, I'm thankful just to be here today with you, and now again tonight. 1 Peter chapter 5. Would you go there with me? The 5th chapter of 1 Peter, Peter's letter to his friends that he was writing to. It's always good to know the backdrop behind the writing of a particular letter that was written in the Scriptures. And so we have tonight a letter that Peter wrote. Recently, I've been given an assignment to study the second letter of Peter, and chapter 1 in particular. I'll be speaking several chapel messages on 2 Peter chapter 1 not too long from now. And so I've been digging into Peter, and I've been finding out kind of his heartbeat and the way he speaks and the way he talks. I find it fascinating that in these two small letters, this is not my sermon tonight, all right? But this is just intro. My intro will be about 30 minutes. In these two small letters, Peter refers to the subject of knowing, knowledge, and increasing of one's knowledge 17 times. Isn't that fascinating? Here was this old guy, I wouldn't call him a bumpkin fisherman, but he was not what you'd call the most educated man during that Galilean area. And he was a man who learned the importance of getting, the old Greek word is gnosis, which is bare bone basic knowledge. But Peter goes on to say, you don't stop with gnosis. You need, aren't you glad you came for this? Epignosis. You say, Morris, I think I had my epignosis removed a few years ago. No, you didn't. Epignosis is super abundant knowledge. It's sort of like what I preached on this morning about Paul saying, I want to increase in knowing Him. Peter said the same thing. And in this letter that he writes, the very first letter, there is a passion. There is a heartbeat behind the letter. He is concerned greatly about his friends. Why? Because they were hurting. You know, I've discovered that some people are hurting more than they let on. You say, how you doing? Fine. And that's not always accurate. And Peter knew these people, he knew they were hurting. You say, why? Because of the persecution they were under. In a brief, quick synopsis, the Caesar of Rome at that time was the crazy man Nero. Nero had an insatiable desire to build more buildings. He was into construction work. And when he ran out of space, he felt there in Rome to build buildings. He had a portion of Rome burnt. It really is true. He played his fiddle while Rome burned. He made the fires burn in Rome. He wanted those buildings to be burnt down so he could rebuild new buildings, and in particular, he could build what was called the Circus Maximus, which was a big amphitheater, big area in which the arts could be produced. Nero loved the fine arts. He actually had written some plays, so there could be some performances brought out. Nero actually was in some of the plays of that day. He loved it so much. He loved acting, and I loved those performances, and he wanted to have a big arena for such performance. And so he burned a bunch of Rome. Well, the Roman citizens were furious, and they were angry with their government. Oh boy, aren't you glad that things have changed? We don't get upset with government. And when they confronted the government, Nero in particular, for what had happened, Nero said, oh no, I'm not guilty. I didn't do it. Once again, aren't we glad that when confronted with truth, government officials will say, you're right. I need to step down and no. Some things don't change. Nero said, no, it wasn't wasn't me. I don't know what the proper grammar is. I didn't do it. He said it was that group of people called Christians. They're the ones who burnt down those Jewish and some Gentile proselytes they burnt down a bunch of our city and took away your life and livelihood, and let's persecute those Christ followers. And so they began to stuff Christians into animal skins and threw them out into the arena where angry, ravenous animals would attack and rip God's people to shreds, and martyrdom took place at a large degree. Some of God's people would be strapped to posts up high and would be, first of all, dipped in oil and in pitch, and then someone would light their body to burn so that the people could come out to the arena to watch the night games with the burning of Christians. That's why when Peter writes his letter, he says to them, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial, which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you, but rejoice inasmuch as you are partakers of Christ's sufferings. It was as if Peter could feel their fear. He could feel their trepidation. He could sense their anxiety. He probably knew some of their worries and frettings. They were meeting underground just to have church. He refers to the church at Babylon. There was no church in that area of Babylon. It was a code name for the church at Rome to protect God's people. And Peter writes to them, and as we come to what you and I call chapter 5, he speaks in the very first few verses of chapter 5 by telling God's preachers, his elders, the shepherds, he said, shepherd the flock, feed them, lead them, and don't lord over them like you're some big shot bossing them around. You can read that in the first 3 verses, and he reminds them that in verse 4 that when the chief shepherd comes, he would reward their faithfulness in ministry. Then he says in verse 5, you who are younger, meaning young people as well as younger in the Lord. You who are younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you, regardless of your age, be subject one to another and be clothed with humility. For God resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that He may exalt you in due time. Don't get confused. The idea there was not exalt you like you're some kind of a super saint. The idea there was that you've been knocked down, but God will bring you back up. He'll lift you back up in due time. Verse 7, casting all your care upon Him, for He careth for you. Be sober, be vigilant, be alert, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Can you hear the heartbeat of this shepherd, Peter, who's trying to help these people who were hurting? Stay alert. Then he says there in verse 9, whom resist, steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. But the God of all grace, who hath called us unto His eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect. That word means mature, and you can actually make it the word restore. He will restore you to great strength. And then he says, establish. That is, He'll make you secure. Strengthen. Settle you. To Him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. My wife, Lynn, who knows many of you, and some of you have heard her as she has spoken to some of the ladies here before, she and I travel together for most of our meetings, most of the time. We are together, but occasionally, like in the summer months, when I have to go from one camp to another, when I'm privileged to go from one camp to another, my journey is usually kind of all over the country, and therefore I do a lot of flying. And as a result of such, I'm having to go from place to place, and the expense factor is just too much upon a camp ministry to pay for 2 tickets. And so she stays home, usually in the summer months. A few years ago, she was at home, and she was working on some home projects, and she was going to do some painting, and I think she was going to make some drapes for some windows in our house and so forth. And I was studying. I was out in California getting ready for a morning service, and my phone rang, and it was my wife, and I said, hey. And she said, Morris, we got problems. She said, there's something wrong with my car. I said, well, what is it? Now, I'm not a mechanic by any stretch. I'm really not. I just said, well, what's going on? She said, well, I was pulling out, and it's making the most horrible, scratching, squawking sound around the wheels. And I said, okay, around the wheels? Not underneath the hood. No, it's not underneath the hood. It's around the wheels. And I said, that's probably brake pads. I said, I think I do know what that is. Your brake pads are going bad on that car. And I said, look, it always sounds super bad until it's completely ruined. And I said, you can drive a few miles. I said, just drive it up the road to a mechanic up on one of the main roads near our home. And before I could finish the sentence, she said, I don't feel good about doing that. She said, what if I break down between here and there? And she said, it makes me nervous. She said, you're not here, and I don't know what I'd do. I said, well, I don't want that to happen. You're exactly right. And I said, I'm not sure. She said, well, what am I going to do? I've got to get out and run these errands. And I said, yes, I understand. I said, I don't know. I said, let me think about it. And I was trying my best to try to figure something out. I didn't know what to say. She couldn't Uber everywhere she wanted to go. And I thought, well, what am I going to tell her? I don't know. Finally, I said, let's hang up. Give me a few moments to think. And let me see if I can come up with an idea. We hung up. We have 2 sons. At that particular time, we all lived in the same area. which was at that time Indianapolis, Indiana. Well, one son was a youth pastor in a local church. The other one was a businessman in a local business there in town. And both of them are about as mechanical as their dad, which means we're in trouble. And I said, I'm not sure. And both of them were probably swamped with busyness. They couldn't help. I didn't know what to do. And I was scratching my head. I decided to call my one son who worked at a local business in town and in an industry, and he never answered his phone, but I thought, I'll just take a stab in the dark. So I called him, and he answered his phone. I said, hey, kid. I said, hey, look. And I explained to him the situation. I said, Mom's got this need, and I said, she needs to run around and get these errands done. And I said, and I need to get that car repaired. I said, you got any ideas of what to do? He said, Dad, I'll take care of it. I said, no, son, you don't understand. It needs to be taken care of now. I said, Mom needs to run these errands now and to take care of these things. And I said, I don't know what to do. He said, Dad, I'll take care of it. I said, what do you mean you'll take care of it? You're at work. He said, Dad, I'm going on break. He goes, and it's no big pressure. He said, I'll drive my car over to Mom. I'll bring her car back up here to the shop. He said, at lunch, he said, we have 3 mechanics that work here in the shop. He said, I'll get a bunch of them and we'll go out there at lunch. He said, we'll take the wheels off and we'll figure out what the parts are that she needs. We'll go into town. I'll buy the parts. And I said, whoa. You will buy the parts? He said, yeah. I said, who is this and what did you do with my son? I said, I can't believe you are going to. He said, Dad, I'll take care of it. And I said, okay. I said, all right. And I said, and being the man, gentlemen, you understand this, being the husband, and even as an example to my son, I still wanted to be a part of the solution. Here I was 2,000 miles away in California. I couldn't say, I'll be right there. I thought, I just simply said, well, what do you need me to do? I'll never forget his answer. It was a classic answer. He said to me on the phone, I need you to hang up. That's what I need you to do. I said, what do you mean? He goes, Dad, I got to get in the car and call Mom and tell her I'm on the way, and I can't do it if I'm sitting here talking to you. He said, Dad, go do what you do. He said, go preach, do what you're doing with teenagers. And he said, I'll take care of Mom. You gave it to me, I got it. So I called my wife about 15 minutes later after he had talked to her, and I said, how about that? And she said, yeah. She said, he's going to come take care of it. With that story in your mind, I want you to revisit a verse with me tonight. I want you to see it with me right now. A verse that you've got so well known in your heart. I can just give you the first word of it and you'd probably start quoting it. It's one of those easy verses to memorize, and yet it comes in one ear and right out the other, and we forget it. But Peter wrote these words, and imagine hearing this for the very first time when he said there in verse 7, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. My son said, Dad, you gave me the problem. Now go on. I got it. I'll take care of Mom. I'll take care of the problem. Don't worry about it. I got it. And the Lord says to his people, you got cares? By the way, the word care there's in the plural. You got cares? Let me have it. Because I care for you. No matter what your age is, no matter how old a person is in life, there's all kinds of cares. A child falls off their bicycle and they hurt and they think that the world could not get any worse. And a mom kisses that knee and thinks in her heart, oh, son, you haven't even begun to see problems. Teenager doesn't get invited to somebody's house and they're failing a particular class. They don't make a team. And they think, everything's going wrong for me. You're just getting started. You become an adult. You get under financial stress. The roof leaks, the car needs tires, your health is getting bad, the boss is talking about laying people off. And there are times in which you think, does God even care? Does He even know this is happening? Does He have any power to change this? Is this really something that He can take care of? Does He have the power to help? Does He even know me? Does He know my issue? Does He care? Maybe tonight your problem goes nowhere near the issue of these people that Peter wrote. Maybe your hurts and cares and anxieties don't come anywhere near what they were facing. In fact, the truth is, many times our cares are not on the side of something that's maximum. It's not like being swallowed by a giant whale. It's all those other little fish that nibble at you all day long, and everything that just begins to irritate you, and it just begins to stack up one thing after another after another. Now, maybe there's some folks in this room tonight on a Sunday. Don't you love the Lord's Day? I love the Lord's Day. It seems like we put all the many cares of the day-to-day grind of every week behind us. But maybe tonight there's somebody here, really everything's going great for you. I mean, your bills are paid, your kid finally graduated, and your other kid finally got out of geometry after 4 years, and your job security is good, your retirement plan is good, the doctor just gave you a good report, your lost dog came home, your cat ran away. It just couldn't be. It couldn't be any better. Cat lovers, don't get mad at me. Everything's going great for you. Listen, I'm happy for you. I really am. I'm happy for you. Everything's going smooth? Good. Just keep going to bed at night. Just keep getting up the next day. Keep living your life. You know well enough as where you're sitting here tonight, things are not always smooth sailing. Your emotions are on a constant roller coaster ride. Sometimes things are really good and you're up and high, and next thing you know, you're hitting the skids. Our emotions are a gift from the Lord. They really are. Emotions are a gift from the Lord. They help us to laugh, to enjoy conversations, to empathize with somebody who's hurting. Emotions are a great gift from the Lord to enhance and color our life. But now hear me tonight, your emotions are not supposed to be in the driver's seat of your life. They're a companion who needs to be sitting in the back seat. Because if emotions are in charge, you're going to have a wreck. And there'll be times in which your life will be so filled with anxiety and restlessness that you'll lose sleep. You won't want to eat. You have panic attacks. You live on edge. You're difficult to talk to. It's difficult to even concentrate. Why? Problems. They just keep coming. And we don't get any help in the world in which we live in. You watch commercials, and commercials are all, advertisers are trying to tell you that what they're selling is what you need and what you have is insufficient, you know. Their toothpaste is far better than that one that produces yellow teeth on you, you know. And are you going to live with that limp and unmanageable hair the rest of your life? When this shampoo just makes your hair have such incredible volume, and there's no paraben. Who knows what paraben is? And all the things that this shampoo is going to make your life so much better. And here is the phone of the future. You're stuck with that 5G phone. This is the phone of 17G. I mean, this phone will vacuum carpets. It'll wash your car. It'll brush your teeth. It'll occasionally make phone calls. It is the phone of the future. And you look at that $895 phone in your hand and you go, what a piece of junk I have. And then you get on social media and you see everybody with their perfect images and their perfect homes and everything looks right. And you look at your kid, got a runny nose, and your husband has just got laid off and the doctor is telling you he saw something on an x-ray, and you go, I could never have a life that's got full of peace like these people online. You don't get much help in the world in which you live in, unless you get yourself anchored in a verse like this in Scriptures. So I was sitting in a doctor's office 5 years ago, just over 5 years ago. After 2 MRIs, after x-rays wouldn't tell anybody what was going on, 2 MRIs began to detect something was wrong. And after they drilled into my bone and took a bone marrow biopsy, the doctor looked at me and he said, Morris, you have multiple myeloma. I didn't even know what it was. I said, is that cancer? He said, yes. He said, but we're going to go after it. He said, in the old days, people who had multiple myeloma, that cancer in their bone marrow, had 3, maybe 4 years left to live. But he said, we've discovered some ways to treat it. And he said, we're going to go after it. Radiation, chemo. And then you're going to conclude with a stem cell bone marrow transplant. That word scared me to death. The whole thing scared me to death. My world came to a screeching halt. This is what I do. I travel, I preach. I don't have a job on a church staff. I mean, this is all I do. I preach at camps in the summertime. And I said to the doctor, how long is this going to take? He said, it's going to take months. I said, doctor, I don't have time for this. He said, you're going to find time. And we began to tackle it month after month. The year was 2018. The entire year, I did no traveling except to a doctor's office or to a hospital. And I got my stem cells that pulled out of me, and they pumped me with all kinds of chemo to kill off the bad cells, and then they put my good stem cells back in me, and they went floating around, and the doctor said, it's an amazing thing. Stem cells know exactly where they belong in the human body. They go right back to where they belong. And I said, I think there's a divine creator. He said, yes, there is. They called it my second birthday. They said, you're starting life all over again. I said, actually, it's my third birthday, but I get the point. Nurses brought a cake in and sang Happy Transplant Day to me. I couldn't eat the cake. I was too sick. And I found over that entire year some passages that I anchored myself to. Because there were times in which the storm got so bad, there were times laying on the floor, there were times crying, there were times I said, God, please let me live. I want to preach again. Lord, I want to be with Lynn. I want to watch my grandkids grow up. Oh, God, please. If you want to take me home, okay, I get it. But please let me live. And I found some verses that I clung to. And one of the verses that he quickly brought me to was 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your care upon him, for he careth for you. It's taken me a while to get here tonight. I say to you tonight again, you may not need this right now, but you will. Hang on to some truths from this verse, just this one verse. Would you note number one? I know it's taken me a while to get to number one, but here we go quickly. Number one, the inevitable reality. The inevitable reality. What's that? You're going to have cares. Notice what Peter says here. Casting all your care upon him. Notice he did not say, some of you that I'm writing to do not have care, nor will you have any cares. So just please bear with me as I try to help those people who will have cares. He didn't say that. He was saying to all of God's people, some of the finest people, some of the earliest believers, He says, it is inevitable. You're going to have cares. It's unavoidable. It's irrevocable. It's unalterable. You're not going to get away from it. You're going to have cares. And for some reason, we've gone through life thinking you're going to reach some point in time in life in which the cares are going to cease. It's not going to happen. And I don't know what magnitude of care will come into your life or what has come into your life. But there's no question that there will be times of fear and anxiety. Let me ask you, do any of these words describe you periodically? Worried. You say, Maurice, are you going to preach on worry tonight? Don't worry about it. The truth is sometimes we get fearful. Are you anxious? Are you troubled? Are you depressed? Do you live with depression? I'm not against medicine. I'm not against doctors. I'm not against getting help from the health world. Before you run off to try to alter things inside of you physically and mentally, understand something. The Lord sent those cares into your life for a reason. Sometimes they come for correction in our life, but as Peter just put it, it's for perfection. The Lord's doing something that you can't see. Sometimes your cares come from the past. Things that you did that you wish you could forget. Things that were done to you that you can't change. And you spend your life thinking, if only I hadn't gone to that party. If only I hadn't taken that first drink. If only I hadn't gone to that website. If only I hadn't joined the military. If only I had have joined the military. If only I hadn't gone to that school. If only I hadn't joined that gang. If only. And you can spend the rest of your life dragging the past around, and it will weigh you down. I think that's why Paul said what he said this morning as we looked at Philippians, forgetting those things which are behind me. I'm going to lean toward the future because there were things in his past that weighted him down if he let it. Sometimes it's our past. You can't change the past, but you can change the meaning of the past, and you can learn lessons from the past without being haunted by the past. Sometimes it's the past. Sometimes it's the present. It's present, everyday cares and concerns of today. How am I going to get everything done? I don't know. I've got so much to do. I don't know about today's finances and today's responsibilities and today's relationships. And I just don't think I can get it all done. Can I tell you about this woman named Martha? You read about her in Luke 10. She was a friend of Jesus. And she's just flitting around in the kitchen, and she comes out, and there's Mary just taking it easy, sitting at the feet of Jesus. And she, Martha, rebukes Jesus. Can you imagine? Would you make her get up and help me? Martha, he said, Martha, chill. Relax, catch your breath, tap the brakes. I don't know what words he used. He just simply said, you are careful about many things. That word careful means you are full of care. You're anxious about a lot of things that it's not good for you to be full of care about. Do what Mary has done. Bring them to me. Sit at my feet. A lady went to her pastor one time and she said, Pastor, you told us that worrying doesn't work and that worrying doesn't help. She says, I think you're wrong. I think worry does help. He said, do what? She goes, yeah. She goes, I discovered that most of the things I worry about never happen. So it must be good to go ahead and just worry about those things. He said, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. That's not true. If it's not the past that is your care, if it's not the present, it's the possibilities. You got to have an outline here. The possibilities of the future. And your conversation goes like this. What if that guy gets elected? Well, maybe he already did in your county or state or in your federal government. What if they pass that law? What if I lose my job? Some dear lady thinks, what if my husband goes before I do? What would I do? What if our retirement is not enough? What if my kid doesn't get out of some subject matter or grade? What if, and you spend your whole life worried about tomorrow and all the future. You know, Jesus dealt with that in His Sermon on the Mount. He told His followers, He said, take no thought for tomorrow. There'll be grace for you to live with tomorrow when you face tomorrow. Live today as you ought to live for me today. It's an inevitable reality. You're going to have cares. Sometimes I'll be sitting on a plane flying somewhere, and the pilot will get on the speaker system and he'll say, I'm going to ask that all the flight attendants quickly get a seat. And everybody please get a seat. Tighten your seat belt. You ever heard this on a plane? Tighten your seat belt. We've just been informed that we're about to have some turbulence. I'm not a real fan of turbulence on a plane. I don't know about you, if you kind of enjoy it. I mean, I don't want to be eating a pretzel and go down. I mean, I just don't like that. I'm a little nervous. I always want to ring that little bell and say, hey, flight attendant, come here. If that pilot knows that turbulence is about to hit us, can he fly around it or something? Go above it, go below it, go by way of Albuquerque to get to Atlanta. I don't care. Just avoid that turbulence. Well, I don't know when it's going to come, but turbulence is coming. You say, Morris, this is not a very pleasant sermon. Well, you haven't heard the rest of it, so stay with me. Number one, the inevitable reality. Number two, the instant response. Look at verse 7 again with me, would you? This is what I clung to. I clung to during my year of fighting cancer. Verse 7, casting. Stop right there. What does the word casting mean? It means to throw something hurriedly. It means to throw something forcefully. It means to throw something with great energy. I love baseball. And as a kid growing up, playing in the infield, I used to love whenever the ball would come, that tension between the ground ball coming to me and getting it out of my glove quickly and firing it usually over to first base or something. You don't throw some little rainbow of a throw. You quickly get it out of your glove, and sometimes that runner is so fast that just hit the ball that you don't even have time to get it in the glove. You just grab it off the ground and throw it quickly. That's the picture here. It's like little kids playing hot potato. I don't even remember how that game goes, but I think they just sort of toss a ball around or something. When the music stops, whoever's stuck with the hot potato, they're out. I think that's how it plays. I just played last week. Now, I don't recall exactly, but you get the point. The idea there is casting. It's, I don't need to hang on to this. Casting what? All your care. Not some, not the big ones, not the little ones, not the ones that matter to other people. It's all of your care. What is the Bible telling us? The Bible is telling us that when cares are inevitably reality in your life, the instant response is to do what? Don't hang on to them. Immediately when they come, oh God, help. Oh God, please take this burden. Oh God, take this worry, take this fear, take this anxiety. Lord, you have forgiven me of my sins, and I don't know what you're trying to teach me, but right now with this trial, I'm trusting you, and I don't want to be preoccupied with sorrow and with dismay, and I don't want to wear the weight of the world on my countenance. The psalmist said more than once, he said in Psalm 42 and verse 5, he said, why are you cast down, O my soul? Did you hear what he's saying? He's talking to himself. Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you disquieted within me? It's like he slaps himself. He goes, come on, hope thou in God, who shall yet be the health of thy countenance. I like what one preacher said. The psalmist stopped listening to himself. Oh, how am I going to get through? He stopped listening to himself and he started talking to himself. Why are you cast down? You know better than this. And why are you discouraged and distraught and depressed? Hope thou in God. I like what the psalmist said in Psalm 27:13. He said, I would have fainted unless I had believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Notice he said, here on earth. Not just in heaven, I'm going to see the goodness of the Lord. No, in the land of the living. I would have passed out. I would have given up hope. Hope is not something, folks, listen. Hope is not yours only when you can figure out what God is doing. Sometimes God doesn't tell you. You know what the book of Job shows us? A man who lived who had no idea what was going on. You know what Job did not have? The book of Job. He didn't have a clue what was going on. C.S. Lewis said maybe the first two words we'll say when we get to heaven will be the two words, of course. Now it makes sense. Do you have a prayer life of a yo-yo? You remember, you play with a yo-yo, you throw it down and you flick that wrist and it comes back up, and you throw it down and bring it right back up. Are you the kind of person you pray and you say, oh God, take this burden off of me. Oh God, I'm scared. Lord, my parents are struggling and I'm worried about our home, and Lord, I'm worried about our finances, and Lord, I'm concerned about the future, and God, I don't know what this world's coming to. It makes me scared. And, oh God, please take this burden off of me. I'm so concerned about it. And like a yo-yo, you go, there you go, Lord, you got it. And you just pick it right back up and you say, I think I'll just carry it with me now. That's not what He tells you to do. Cast it. You say, Morris, I can take my burdens to the Lord, but the burden is still there. Then cast it again. You say, but it's still, keep casting until you recognize, I don't have to carry this. I'd be sitting upstairs. I called it my upper room during my battle year of cancer. And I am grateful tonight, I can tell you, that most of the time, God's grace was evident, and I was able to face just about everything with a sense of peace. I really did. And I say that honestly for God's glory. But there were a handful of days over a year's time in which it just came all over me. And my caregiver, my companion of life, constantly checking on me. One day she came upstairs to see if I needed anything, if I was okay. I was just weeping. I wept at everything. I was weak. I wept at everything. It was crazy. I'd be watching a ball game and they'd be singing the national anthem and I'd just weep. Say, I love America. I was just weeping at everything. But this time I wasn't watching a game or anything else. She came upstairs and I was crying and she said, are you hurting? Are you okay? And I said, no. I'm casting. I'm under a load right now, just casting. What is the instant response, child of God? Cast it on Him. I'm convinced that the Lord gives us problems of any size and of any stratosphere so that we can turn right around and give it back to Him and trust in Him, and our strength in Him increases. I used to sit on the floor when I was a little boy. I'd be playing with my baseball cards, and my mother would be playing with some kind of needle craft, and she'd be working with some cross stitch, I think she called it, and she'd stick a needle of thread through it and then back up and down through it. I'd be on the floor and I'd look up and all I saw were a bunch of threads hanging underneath this piece of fabric. And being the loving, good boy that I was, I said, Mom, that's ugly. And she'd say, you can't see what I can see. You don't know what I'm doing. And I said, well, I don't know what you're doing, but it sure is ugly. And sometimes she'd say, stand up. Come over here and get close to me. And I'd come over and I'd look at it from her vantage point and I'd go, well, look at there. There's a butterfly or a mountain range or whatever. She was designing it. And sometimes I've said, Lord, I don't know what you're doing. But it's scary. It's ugly. It bothers me. And He says, you don't know what I'm doing. Wait on me. Don't get bitter. Be faithful. Cast your care on me. Number one, the inevitable reality. You're going to have cares. You may be in a care-filled storm right now. Number 2, the immediate response, casting. And finally, the incredible reason. Why should I cast all my care on Him? Let the verse describe it. Look at verse 7. Casting all your care upon Him. Why? For He careth for you. I discovered when you're going through a hardship and a fear time and a scary time and a troublesome time, you know what helps? It just helps to know somebody cares. Some phone call, some email, some letter, some text. It just helps to know somebody cares. The greatest one who cares is the Lord Himself. That's the incredible reason why I should cast my cares back to Him, because He cares for me. Can I give you a little understanding of the language that Peter was using? This is important. He was speaking in the present tense. You say, what do you mean? He was saying, right now, believer, not someday, not used to be, no matter where you are, when you have a care, present tense, right now, He cares for you. He was writing also in the active voice. What does that mean? It means this. It's not hypothetical. It's not hyperbole. It's not preacher hype, trying to make people think good thoughts of God. No, he was saying it's real. He actually cares for you. But not only is it in the active voice in the present tense, it's in the indicative mood, which means this. It will always be true. It will continue on and on and on. Friends, it says this, He is caring for each one of you individually all of the time for the rest of your time. You say, but Morris, I can't imagine God cares for me. Yeah, I know. It's called amazing love, grace, forgiveness, and grace and kindness and mercy, long-suffering desire to draw you closer to Him. You say, but I'm sure He cares for people in spiritual places, but I haven't been real consistent. He cares for you. You can put your name in the margin. He always has. He always will. Isaiah said in Isaiah 66 and verse 13, as one whom his mother comforts, so will I comfort you. No one comforts like a mother. Jesus, it says of Him in Matthew 14, and He had compassion on them. Hebrews 4 says, we do not have a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities. John 6:37, Jesus said, whoever comes to me, I will in no wise cast out. That word means I will never cast them away. A double emphasis, not just for a literary forcefulness, but for literary meaningfulness. He says, I will not ever cast you away. Hebrews 7:25, He always lives to make intercession for them. 1 John 2 and verse 1, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. Matthew 11:19, He is a friend of sinners. That's my Lord. Did you know tonight that the Lord knows that you need money to put gas in your vehicle this week? He knows you have a need. He knows. So cast it on Him. He knows that your kids need new shoes. He knows. He knows your house needs a new roof. He knows. He knows you're fearful about the next doctor's report. He knows. So cast it on Him. Whatever it is that you're struggling with tonight, is it good for us to meditate on these sort of things? Yeah. Because it enhances your worship of Him. I've discovered that I sing a whole lot better since I learned how to cast my cares on Him. Familiar songs have meant so much more to me as a result of going through the battle with cancer. I've discovered, and we all need to discover this, I can be a lot more patient with people and more forgiving because I don't know what they're going through. I've discovered that I can have the peace that the Lord Jesus promised. At the end of 2018, And as we started 2019, the doctor took another test. I was going through so many tests. He looked at the numbers and he said, okay, you're in remission. No sign of any cancer at all. I have to go back every 3 months and they draw more blood out. Make sure that it's not coming back. It's the type of cancer that wants to come back. That was 5 years ago. And every time I go, there's no sign of it. Do I fear? Sometimes I have to practice what I preached tonight. Last time I went, actually 2 times ago, the doctor looked at me and he said, okay, looking at your report here, look, you're healthy. He said, next time you come, could you just kind of bring some kind of sickness? He says, I don't have anything to talk to you about. I said, nay, doc. I said, I don't want to bring any sickness anymore. One night, my mother thought she heard someone breaking into our home. My dad was not at the house. He was gone on a business trip, but he would be coming home later that night. I was at home with my mom and my sister. My mom thought she heard somebody breaking in. We went running out of the house to the neighbors and had the police show up at our house. I was scared to death. I was about 5. Someone breaking into our house in the back, it was frightening. And I won't share details, for I know we've got young ears in the room tonight, but it scared me. The police went through the house and came back across the street and told my mother, he said, Mrs. Gleiser, there's no sign of anything. He said, except the fact the back door was unlocked. It looks like somebody was trying to. He says, but you're good. You can go home. My mother said, thank you, officer. We're going to wait here for my husband. He'll be home in a little bit. After a bit, Dad showed up and we called him across the street and told him what was going on. My dad walked back into that dark house. I stood in the backyard of a neighbor and I thought, I got the bravest daddy in the world. After a bit, he came back and he said, all right, it's good, it's clear, let's go home. And I thought, go home? I don't want to go home. Just get my baseball glove and my bike and I'm good. That's all. I'm just bringing on over here. My dad said, let's go home. I grabbed Daddy by the pant leg as we walked across the street. And I said, Daddy, did you check all the closets? Closets are important to kids, I'm telling you. He said, I did, son. There's nobody in any closet. I said, did you check underneath every bed? He said, I did. I said, did you look underneath in the vents of the house? It could have been a real skinny man. He said, there's nobody in the house, son. We walked inside the house and my dad said, all right, it's late. Let's all go to bed. Go to bed? There'll be no sleeping tonight. We'll all sit up, prepared for any particular danger that may come our way. I laid in my bed with my eyes as big. I remember thinking, don't blink, don't blink, don't blink. In a matter of a blink, some guy may be on me, that quickly. I was scared. And as the night wore on, I heard somebody walking down the hall. The light was on in the hallway. And there stood my dad with a baseball bat in his hand. He didn't think anybody was in the house. He just knew he had a scared little 5-year-old boy who needed to be reassured. I got this, son. Go to sleep. I will say I had mixed emotions. I'd love to see Dad go after somebody with that bat, but after a bit of time I thought, I might as well go to sleep. Next thing I knew, it was morning. And sometimes the Lord sends you through times of real worry and fear just to remind us, I've got this. Rest. You're in my hands. I've not lost control. Cast your care back on me. I know what I'm doing. I'm designing something you can't see right now. Rest in me. Father, I pray for these, my friends. I pray that you'll help each one here to find the peace that comes with just simply knowing that you're in charge, even at times when we don't understand what you're doing. And Lord, that's so often. I pray that you'll comfort the one who's struggling tonight. I pray that you will encourage someone who's a bit discouraged. I pray that you will strengthen someone who's weak tonight. And I pray that you'll remind all of us what your word is saying the next time we face any kind of anxiety and trouble of any size and structure. Help us, Lord, tonight to rest in you. Our heads are bowed. Was this for you tonight? If it was only for one or two, then so be it. If there's others in this room tonight that just need to hang on to this truth for the days to come, good. Gentlemen, sometimes it's hard for us as men to admit I'm weak and I need encouragement from God. I need help from anyone. How many tonight would say, Morris, honestly, if I'm the only one in the building who needed this scriptural reminder, God spoke to my heart. He gave me something I needed to hear tonight. If that's so, would you lift up your hand across the room? My hand's up. I just needed this tonight. Just needed it. God bless so many. Thank you. Listen carefully. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pray briefly once again. I'm going to let you stay seated, all right? The music will begin in a moment, and when it does, I want you just to take time with your Lord and talk to Him about whatever it is that's on your heart, whatever concern. If there's a specific concern, issue, relationship, hardship, sorrow that you're going through right now, take it to Him right now, tonight, when I give opportunity for you to pray, and I'm quiet. You take it to Him. If you don't have anything specific, just you say, "No, Lord, I know that I'm prone to be worrisome, and I don't want to be." And you put it in your own words, but you tell Him tonight, "Lord, I don't want to live with care. I want to rest at your feet." And when you're through praying, it shouldn't take long. When you're through praying, just stand up. We're going in opposite direction. Usually we stand, we encourage people to find a place to kneel and to pray. And if you'd like to get on your knees, help yourself. But I'm just trying to make it easy for every one of God's people right there where you sit, just to talk to your Lord. I'm going to go down in the front row and I'm going to talk to the Lord. And when you're through praying, just stand up and your pastor will conclude whenever he sees fit. Father, encourage your people in the next few moments as they spend a few moments with you in prayer. We commit our time to you.